Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the percent proportion. It's going to start our percent unit. So we're going to be looking at the percent proportion that says if we have a part over whole, that equals percent over 100. For example, if you get a 17 out of 20 on a test, if you get a 17 out of 20 on a test, that means you get an 85%. So what am I going to put in the grade book? I'm going to put in 85 points out of 100 because percent means out of 100. So this is our percent proportion. If I were to multiply my diagonals, those diagonals would be equal to each other because it is a percent proportion. So those cross products are equal. So we're going to use that percent proportion to help us find either the part, the whole, or the percent. I will tell you on this front page, you're not going to have homework over this front page, and I'm not assessing you on what's on this front page. So this will not be on a quiz or a test. But I do want to introduce you to these types of problems using the percent proportion. And then on Thursday, when we do percent equation, we're going to do these problems again, and you're going to do some practice problems using percent equation with these, because these are a little bit more difficult to do using the percent proportion. So when we look at these using the percent proportion, we have three different examples here. So we have what percent of 24 is 18? What number is 60% of 150? 12 is 80% of what number? What percent of 50 is 30? 40% of what number is 36? They are all in the exact same format. You should notice that they all have a percent, they have the word of, and they have the word is. And so the format that these are all in, they are all in this percentage, that the percent of the whole is the part. They could also be the part is percent of the whole. So what you notice is we have percent of whole on both of those. We have the percent of whole on both of those. So when I take a look at example 1, what percent of 24 is 18? Put a box around where you see percent of the whole. Box that. Because that's going to help you determine what is your percent and what is your whole and what is your part. So when I set up my proportion, I can see that the number 100 is always going to be in the bottom left-hand quarter. That 100 is always going to be there. The percent is always going to be on top of the 100 because percent means out of 100. So do I know the percent? I don't. It says what percent, so it's my variable, x. If I look at that, what percent of 24? Because 24 comes right after the word of, it's my whole. So the whole number, 24, goes in the denominator. My part, which is not the whole, it's outside of the box, is 18. And so now I'm going to use my cross products. I'm going to set up an equation and solve. So when I do my cross products, I get 24x equals 1800. We divide by 24 to both sides. So when you do that division, we get x equals 75. And because the question is what percent, this is going to be 75%. Okay, let's move on to example 2. What number is 60% of 150? Put a box around your percent of whole. 60% of 150. So I know this is my percent of the whole. So I have my proportion set up. I'm going to put in my 100. And we're going to fill in. Where does my percent go? Goes over my 100, so I know it's 60%, so that goes over 100. And I know it's of 150, so my whole goes in the denominator. And I don't know the part. It's my x. So now when I do my cross products, I get 100x equals 9,000. I'm going to divide by 100. So x equals 90. And notice how I do not have a percent behind that 90. The reason why is because the question was what number. When the question says what percent, your answer would have a percent. If it just says what number, we already have a percent in this statement. I don't need another one. All right, let's take a look at example 3. 12 is 80% of what number? So I'm going to put a box around my 80% of what number? And I'm going to fill in my proportion. My 100 always goes in that bottom right-hand corner. I see that I have 80%, so it's 80 over 100. Of what number? That means my whole is an x, and my part is 12. I do my cross products. We get 80x equals 1200. We divide by 80, and so x equals 15. We're going to skip these exercises down here and let's go ahead and go to the back side. So now this is the most important part. We're going to take a look at some word problems. When you're reading your word problems, the first thing you need to determine is what is your percent, what is your whole, and what is your part, and what are you trying to find. And remember, we're using this proportion of part over whole equals the percent over 100. There's your percent proportion you need to use to solve these problems. So Mrs. Lovelace has 2 red pens in her purse. If this is 25% of the total number of pens she has, how many pens are in her purse? So what do I know? Do I know the percent? I know the percent, so it'd be 25%. I know that she has 2 red pens, and it wants to know how many total pens are in her purse. That means I know that my part is 2, and I don't know my whole. It's my x. I don't know what the total number of pens she has. I know part of them are red, so it's 2. So now I set up my proportion. I know my 100 goes there. I have 25%, so it's 25 out of 100. My part goes in the numerator, it's 2, and I don't know the whole. So I do my cross products, and I get 25x equals 200. I'm going to divide by 25. So x equals 8 pens. Okay. Okay, number 2, Mrs. Lamb scored 48% of her team's points in the last basketball game. If her team had a total of 50 points, how many points did she score? So we have our percent, our whole, and our part. So Mrs. Lamb scored 48%, so I'm going to put my 48%. The whole, the entire team scored a total of 50 points, so that's my whole. I don't know the part that she scored, so that's my x. And then I would fill in my proportion. my 100, 48 out of 100, and I have x over 50. Then you have your cross products. 100x equals 2400. We divide by 100. So x equals 24 points. Okay, number 3. Mr. Huntley has 60 books on his bookshelf. 24 of these books are nonfiction. What percent of his books are nonfiction? So again, I'm going to list out percent equals, whole equals, and part equals. The question asked me what percent, so I know the percent is my x. Total amount of books he has, he's got a total of 60. The part that are nonfiction are 24. So I'm going to take 24 over 60 equals x over 100. And we do our cross products. And so we get 60x equals 2400. We divide by 60. So x would be 40%. And you can just leave it 40%. That is your label on that one. Okay, last one, number 4. Pair of sneakers are on sale for $51. This is 75% of the original price. What was the original price of the shoes? So we're going to take our percent, our whole, and our part. So our percent is going to be 75%. Our whole is going to be the original price, and that's what we don't know. Our part is the portion that you paid, the 51. Okay, those of you watching the video, I want you to pause the video. I want you to set up the proportion and solve it, and then play it again when you're ready to check your work. Okay, so you should have checked your work. We would have 51 over x equals 75 over 100. Cross products, and we get x would be $68 would be the original price. Now, those of you watching the video, the next thing I need you to do is I need you to write really big at the bottom, Mrs. Patterson is the best teacher ever. Write that at the bottom of your notes. Then you're going to take your notes to either Miss Lang or to Mrs. Taylor and have them check your notes, and they're looking to see, did you write Mrs. Patterson is the best teacher ever? So if you want to get your practice, you have to have that written. Whether you believe it or not, you got to write it. And then they're checking to make sure that you have all your notes filled out, so make sure you have those all filled out before you get your practice. Work on that practice, and that'll be due tomorrow. We'll grade that practice tomorrow along with the practice that was due today. Be good. Peace out.